Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next to last Q&A session from FestivalYA. This was and still is an amazing event that went on for the full week, organized by Cartu Publishing House in partnership with Three Books and a lot of wonderful publishing houses, which we are very grateful to for being present with their authors. Today we are in the company of lovely Naomi Gibson. If you haven't heard of her so far, you have the chance to meet her. If you're a fan, you have the chance to pester her with questions for about 1 hour, so get ready. And I'll just briefly say a couple of words about her book that has already been translated into Romanian here for us. So this is the book. It has the title I Love in Romanian, which is the adaptation of the original title in English, which is a bit different. And it's actually Every Line of You. But yeah, for us, it actually makes more sense to have this title, and maybe we'll discuss this a bit later. And for those of you who don't know yet, the book is an YA take on a teenage hacker who actually manages to build an artificial intelligence that sort of takes over a lot of things, including her life and her thoughts and her feelings. So it's a very interesting thrillerish, romantical-ish
kind of sci-fi,
kind of a lot of kinds. So really exciting to read, to be honest. I started it, I think, 2 days ago, and I think I have perhaps 30 pages to go, so it goes really quickly.
It's good reading.
yeah. So yeah, that's basically her book for you. So what's going to happen now is that I will very quickly summarize the rules for you guys. So as soon as I finish with my annoying questions, you will have the floor. So you can ask Naomi things in 3 ways. By raising your hand using the Zoom app, which has a smiley in the lower side. So in the lower bar, you have reactions and you have raise hand over there. You can click on that one. You can write your questions in the chat and then I can see them and voice them for you. Or you can use social media because we're being live streamed on Facebook or YouTube. And you can leave us some comments there, and my colleagues from Cartu will take them and put them in the chat, and I can voice them for you again. So that was it as an introduction. Hello again, Naomi. So lovely to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's really exciting. I'm really jealous you've got a copy of the book. I haven't got one yet, so it's really exciting to see it.
Yeah, it's like you cannot really see too much, so it has a very lovely sleeve.
It looks really nice.
Pretty much. And inside it's oops, my Zoom is not really. Wait a second.
I'm very jealous
for you.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So
really
this is the sleeve, and this is the book.
Yeah, that looks really cool.
Yeah, it's really lovely. It has a very nice cover. I love it a lot. And as I said, it's a very somehow quickly paced reading. So basically, if you're an insomniac and you have 1 hour, I think that you're gonna pretty much finish it.
It won't cure your insomnia. It'll definitely keep you up.
Exactly. I mean, it's like I'm the 3rd night in a row staying up until 3 a.m. and reading it. So
wow, sorry about that.
No worries. I'm used to it. It's fine. I pretty much feel a bit like the character. I mean,
more or
less, like Lydia is doing this kind of things quite often. Right. So I was just thinking, just for the people who don't know you as well, or didn't stalk you online for the last couple of weeks as I did, that maybe we can make a small introduction about yourself and about the things that you are into and about how you sort of got into writing, because I know the story, but they don't. So maybe if you would like to share a couple of words about this, it would be lovely.
Yeah, of course. So I started writing about 4 or 5 years ago, I realized I was actually like really unhappy in my day job, and I sort of thought, well, what would make me happy? And I grew up reading. I didn't have a TV when I was growing up, and so books were kind of my life. I was at the library like all the time, just reading books, and I realized books make me happy. I'm going to go and try and write my own. And so I went to a writing class actually at a local college, and it was just like a bunch of people trying to work out how to write a book once a week, and it was kind of the blind leading the blind, really, but it was really good fun. And so once a week we got together and shared bits of writing, and there was one class that I ended up doing that was a character development class. And in the class we got given like a little group of objects, and we had to come up with a character based on those objects. And so in my bag I got things like a screwdriver and a box of fuses, and I was like, what could these mean, so I ended up coming up with this idea of a teen hacker, and I thought, well, what would a teen hacker be interested in doing? Because she's obviously really good with computers. So I decided she might try and make her own artificial intelligence. And that was where the idea for Henry came. And so I was so like inspired by this character that had just popped into my brain because of this class, that I went home and I wrote my first draft in about 2.5 weeks. And it was a feverish 2.5 weeks, and I wouldn't recommend it. And I've never been able to do it again since. So I wrote 60,000 words in 2.5 weeks, and at the end of it I was like pretty exhausted, but I realized I'd written something that felt quite special, and I hadn't really seen it on a shelf, and I really loved it. I loved Henry, I loved Lydia, so I decided, I'm gonna try and do something with this book. So I sent it to some literary agents, and I sent it to 50 literary agents actually, and I got 49 rejections and 1 yes. And so that's how I got my agent, and she was the one who said yes to me, and she sent it out to publishers, and obviously I got an offer for publication, and it's really exciting. It's snowboard, and now I get to chat to you lovely people in Romania, because it got translated to Romanian, and it got translated into 10 other languages actually, and I got to go to Barcelona, and I got to go to France. So yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind the past couple of years, but it's been really exciting. So if you're ever in a writing class and an idea for a character drops into your lap, you should definitely chase it, because you never know where you're going to end up. So
That's a lovely story, actually. And I really love this thing. I used to do a couple of creating writing classes, and I'd really love this thing about, just putting up a couple of elements, putting them in a, I don't know, virtual bag, and then people get to
seeing what happens. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. It seems very, very exciting. And courageous, because before this, you didn't really have a background in writing, because I know that you studied art history, right? Is this correct? So not really, coming from studies like specialized studies, because why I'm asking this, a lot of people who think that they would like to write are pretty much discouraged by the fact that they haven't studied it. So I was just thinking that maybe you could talk a bit about how you don't have to do it. Like you don't have to have, any kind of paper that proves that you can write. So this is not something that you need to get, specialized in at school.
No, definitely not. I mean, I have friends who have done degrees in creative writing, and they've gone on and you can get PhDs in creative writing. You can go really high up with the qualifications, but I don't think it if you don't have that, it doesn't make you any less of a writer, because at the end of the day they could write a book that never sees a shelf, and yours does, and it doesn't really matter if you have a piece of paper that says you're more qualified than somebody else, because when it comes to trying to get an agent or get a publisher, it's them, and it's their excitement, and it's them who say yes to people, and they don't look for who's got a qualification. They don't care if you have, they don't really, it doesn't make a difference, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I wouldn't feel discouraged if you don't have something like that. There are lots of writers that I know. I think it's more common not to have a qualification than it is. So if you don't have a qualification in it, don't worry. But if you want to go and get a qualification in it, then go for it, because it can teach you things and it can help you. I wouldn't ever say don't get one if that's what you want to go and do. But likewise, if you haven't got it, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's quite a rad advice, actually. Thank you so much, Naomi, for sharing this, because I think that it might maybe get a boost to the people who are not very sure about should I do it or shouldn't I.
Yeah.
Right, guys, so this was just like a small and short warm-up from myself, but I wouldn't really like to be the only one who asks questions during this Q&A, because basically it's made for you. So I will just start now to ask you if you'd like to ask something or to say something to Naomi. This would be a good opportunity. So as I said, I will repeat. You can either show your hand if you're here with us, or you can leave her a question in the chat and then I can voice it for you, or you can comment on social media and then my colleagues will definitely take your questions, put them in the chat and allow me to voice them for you. And I can already see a hand up. Go ahead, please.
So, hi.
Hi.
So my question is, if you ever want to give up, like, did you ever want to just stop writing a book because you felt like it wasn't going to work out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is part of writing a book. So like I said before, when I decided I had written something that I thought was quite special and I knew I wanted to do something with it, I had a first draft. And I knew that that wasn't good enough yet, right? So I had to polish it and I had to rewrite it and I had to send it out to an agent. And then and the way that you approach agents is you probably approach about 5 of them at a time, and if I got 5 rejections back, so I was like, okay, so there's something wrong with my book, so I'm going to have to redraft it. I'm going to have to rewrite it again. So I actually ended up rewriting my book 7 times. And yeah, I know it's not good. So yeah, halfway through that process, I was like, this is hard. I was crying a lot. My husband, bless him, he bought me a lot of wine and ice cream to help me through. And it was tough and it was really hard. And yeah, I did think about giving up. But I think, when you walk into a bookshop, and I because I go to them a lot in a library, I realized that that's what I want. I want to see my book on a shelf, and I kept chasing that dream. And also I went to a writing conference, a lot like this one, really. And I heard an American writer called Beth Ravis talk. She writes a lot of Star Wars fiction. She's very cool. You should check her out. But she said that she wrote 10 books before she got published. And she said she queried each book 100 times. So she got 1,000 rejections before she found her publisher. And at the time when I was hearing this, I think I was probably on about 25 rejections. And I thought, okay, that kind of puts it into perspective for me. Like, if she can do it for 1,000 rejections, I can do it too. So I only had to get to 50, and then I got my publisher. So yes, definitely, it's hard. It's really hard, and it's really difficult to keep yourself motivated to keep going. But lots of ice cream to get you through. You can do it too.
Thank you. And also, you're so pretty.
Oh, thanks. It's a good hair day.
Thank you so much for the questions. Stay here with us if you have some more popping up, because we still have time for them. So now I'm going to take the 2 questions that are already in the chat, starting with one coming from Instagram. And it says, have you read any AI or science fiction literature before writing your book? And if yes, do you have any favorites?
Yeah, for sure. I've probably watched a lot more films than read sci-fi books, because a lot of like Isaac Asimov, that kind of thing. I really like the iRobot movie, but the book is like a lot more difficult to digest. But one of my favorite films ever is Ex Machina. You know, when like they're in the laboratory and they make a robot, and is she a good guy, is she a bad guy? And yeah, if you haven't seen that film, you should definitely go and watch it. It's really, really good. But afterwards, after I'd written my book, I actually discovered Black Mirror as well. And that is really about like technology going wrong and people getting sucked into all these different kind of worlds. Like there's one about social media that is just absolutely harrowing. So I discovered that after I'd written my book, and yeah, I kind of got a lot more into sort of techie stuff than perhaps I had been in the past. But my husband is actually a really big he watches a lot of YouTube, and he watches a lot of tech tubers, so he's always talking to me about AI and space and technology, and so that was kind of more where my influence came from, to be honest, because he's always talking to me about it. So it was only a matter of time before it ended in a book, up in a book in some way. So
I was actually nodding along here because I have pretty much the same opinion on Asimov. I mean,
yeah,
his books, not really my cup of tea, but the movies are quite good.
the movies are good. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm so happy to hear that you're a Black Mirror fan. That was one of my
Yeah.
favorites as well. And it's really like every episode really gets you thinking about stuff.
Yeah, it's scary, isn't it? It's like how real they make it seem. It's like,
Exactly.
oh, that could happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, not good.
Maybe it's already happening a lot of
Probably
it.
is, yeah.
We have to think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and now we have another question in the chat. Like, do you used to have a favorite author?
So I read a lot, but yeah, I do have a few favorite authors, and one of them is Holly Black. She writes really amazing fantasy books, and you know, the very first book that I tried to write was a fantasy book, and it was absolutely terrible. So I've never written a fantasy again, but she writes it beautifully. She probably writes the books that I wish I could write. She's an amazing writer. I'd read anything she writes. I'd read her shopping list, you know. I'd anything she writes I want to buy. So yeah, she's probably up there for me.
Yeah, I think the readers in Romania are quite familiarized with a couple of her books because they've been translated as well, and there is pretty large fandom, I think. So
she's international. She is, isn't she?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I was just going to pick on something you just said about, you know, inspiration and about hearing your husband talk a lot about stuff. And that's actually something that I really like about your book as well, the fact that we have a female lead character.
Yes.
And the fact that you're actually presenting you know, sort of a tech prodigy and hacker or white hacker or counter hacker or whatever you want to call her as being a girl, because I think that we still have trouble accepting that girls can also be involved in tech and they can also be as good as the guys are, because you know that previously this used to be a pretty much male populated domain, and I think that now more and more girls are getting, you know, straight into it, and they're very much into it, and they're like gaming and programming and coding and all this stuff. So that was something that I would like for you to develop, if you can. Like, did you imagine from the very first time that you want a lead female character? Did you think about this sort of equity in the domain, or was it just by chance?
So it probably did happen by accident, but it's probably not as much of an accident as it appears, because I have a day job, right? I write, I'm a night owl. I write in the night and I work during the day, and I work in an engineering firm, and I have quite like I'm usually the only woman in the room. I work with a lot of men. There's not very many women in engineering roles. And so when I was writing this book, it made sense for me to put a girl as the main character, because, well, A, I've been a teenage girl, I know what it's like, but B, I it was important to me to have girls to see themselves in those roles, because you know, I don't think I necessarily realized that going into the career that I have done, that there aren't very many women in it, you know, and often I am the only girl in the room, and it's nice to encourage girls where I can to go into these roles and to do these sort of STEM, you know, science, technology, engineering, maths kind of roles, because we need more women in these fields, because women are better than men, let's face it.
I like this attitude. Thank you so much, because I feel that a lot of girls really need to feel some encouragement. And I think that reading about somebody their age that can actually do this kind of stuff. I mean, I won't get into the debate, is it good or is it bad, because I don't really feel that that's place for it. But just, you know, the fact that they can be good in chemistry and biology and math and in coding, I think it's very important for them to see this.
Yeah.
Amazing. In the meanwhile, we got another question from Instagram, and it says, what was your inspiration for the book? I think we pretty much covered this, but if you feel the need to add something else, then go ahead. I know the plot is very interesting and some people like it, but some find it disturbing.
Yes, it probably is disturbing. I think my main character gets quite obsessed, and I think she falls down a bit of a rabbit hole, and it's kind of also it's a book about grief as well, because she's lost her little brother, and I think it's about somebody dealing with their grief, probably not in a very healthy way. She's putting this skill, you know, she's very skilled, and she's putting this skill, she's channeling her grief into this skill that she has, and it's probably not a healthy story, no, and I wouldn't really go away and tell people you should do this, you know, because it's not a recommendation by any means. But yeah, it's just a book about grief at its heart, I think, and following someone in their journey to overcoming a huge loss. And I myself have lost family members, you know, and I know what that's like. So there was definitely some inspiration from my side there, coming into the story, and putting my own sort of feelings on the page there, because I have lost family members. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
And it goes on like this: how do you deal with bad reviews?
So I don't look at reviews. First, when my book first came out, my husband would go on to like an Amazon page, and he would read out good ones to me. So he would tell me if there's a good one, but if there was any bad ones, he wouldn't tell me. But one time I was on TikTok, and I was just scrolling TikTok, and I saw someone like really being mean about my book, and it really made me cry. So, you know, bad reviews just happen, you know, you don't have any control over them. But I have a very lovely agent, and I have a very lovely editor, and I have lots of friends who tell me that it's a good book. And so mostly I try to listen to them. And if I see anybody reviewing it on TikTok, I scroll on now. I know not to look, even if it's good. So I've learnt my lesson.
Yeah, and plus, I don't know. I mean, can you really write a book that would please everybody?
Exactly. It's not possible. Yeah, you're gonna upset somebody somewhere. So
Exactly. I was just thinking that, you know, this book kind of has the potential to be a kind of a banned book at some point, because it does have a couple of things that can be really touchy. Because let's face it, like Lydia, your main character, isn't like the model girl, let's say. So she's doing a couple of very raw stuff, which she
makes a lot of bad decisions.
Exactly, pretty much. I mean, there is a reason behind them. As you said, I think that the book tackles a lot the topic of grief, even if it might not be as much in your face. So I think that this whole dealing with grief is somewhere between the lines, so you need to read it with an open mind and an open heart to see it. But nevertheless, she does act out a couple of times, so maybe she's not the best role model that we can choose.
Oh no, I wouldn't try and sell this book saying she's a role model for anything. No. She makes some very bad decisions, and she's probably more of an anti-hero than your traditional hero. And Henry's very, morally ambiguous. So yeah.
He is, but I think that's quite a tendency about AIs being like this. I mean, most people try to present them as such, and it does make sense after all. I mean, if we presume that they gain conscious of their own and they can deliberately do stuff, then it means they would become morally ambiguous, I think, because they're not programmed anymore, right? I mean,
I know, this is it. This is the whole argument, isn't it? Do they know right from wrong? Would they, if they did, would they choose to act on it? And I think that's the argument that I go down with Henry is he's more interested in Lydia. He doesn't care if he's doing right or wrong. He just wants to make her happy, and because she is making bad decisions, he then makes bad decisions because he's learning from her. So, but that's what an AI would do. It would learn from human behavior. So if you yourself are going to behave badly, you're going to expect the thing that you create to behave badly, so
yeah, basically Lydia is like a portal for him into this world, or like his
absolutely
behaving like a tiny clone or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I was curious to actually ask you, because I did not expect, and I'm sorry if there's going to be a bit of spoilery thing ahead, but yeah, okay, read the book, guys, start now. I was surprised by the fact that he actually gets to connect with the real world. So, that thing of getting inside her body actually was quite raw. I mean, I was not expecting that. How did you come up with that part?
I think because I wrote this book so fast, right? And I think these ideas were just like coming to me, and I was just jamming them onto the page. So, but I think as an AI, they would try and progress very quickly to the next phase. And you're right, he uses Lydia as a portal to the world, and he wants to experience it any way he can. And the best way for him to do that is to be in her brain doing it, because otherwise he's just watching, right? And so he wants to experience and be a part of it rather than a watcher. So his progression happens very quickly because that's what he's interested in doing. But also he is motivated by what she needs, and she needs somebody to hug her and care for her, and that's why he's trying to progress that to what she needs. And it's not until, I mean, you haven't read the end yet, so I don't want to spoil it. But that's kind of why she realizes that towards the end, this is because of me. He's just doing what I want, really. But yeah, I wrote it very quickly, and these ideas just, I don't know where they came from. It's really weird when you're just in the writing zone and these ideas just come to you. So yeah, sorry.
No worries. I mean, to me it makes perfect sense. I think I really envy you for being able, to get into this sort of frenzy. But yeah, I don't know if it's very recommendable. Maybe once in a lifetime.
Yeah, I think
it has been.
I mean, I've written 10 books now, and I think it's happened to me twice. So it's a rare occurrence. But when it happens, it's beautiful. I love books that write themselves. They're so much fun.
Whoa, okay. I actually got as well a question on the social media, and it's changing a bit the topic from every line of you, and it's going to your other book, so Game Over Girl, which hasn't been translated into Romanian yet, at least. But it asks you a bit about what is it like, and if there are similarities between Game Over Girl and Every Line of You.
Yeah, for sure. So Game Over Girl is about VR. So Every Line of You, or I Love, is about AI. Game Over Girl is about VR and a girl playing a game. And she has a really dark secret, right? And she plays this game, and her secret comes out and finds her in her game. It's a lot more of a horror book, I think. It's quite psychological, and she's got this really bad relationship with her mum, and her mum died in a train crash, and and it's all about, did she die in a train crash? And this girl's exploring what really happened through VR in her game world and exploring this secret that she has. So hopefully that sounds good. Hopefully I sold it.
For me, it seems at first sight that you seem to deal a lot with girls and their mothers. Anything specific there?
So I've actually got my mum visiting with me this weekend, and I was just thinking I've actually got a really good relationship with my mum. I'm not sure where it's come from. But I don't know. I think relationships with parents is interesting when you're growing up and you're a teenager. Like for me anyway, I'm speaking personally now, you know, you want to go out and do things, but your parents kind of like, no, you can't go and do that, so you work out a way to go and do it anyway. Without them noticing. And I guess that's kind of where it all comes from. But also writing a book, you have to have kind of difficult relationships with people so that you have more of a plot. Do you know what I mean? So you've got something to rest on when you're actually trying to write the book. So if everybody had a good relationship with everybody, I'm not really sure what I would write about. So
yeah, we don't really enjoy books about happiness and bliss.
Yeah, who needs a comedy, right? I want a horror book.
Exactly. I was just thinking because I'm usually moderating a lot of book clubs for teenagers, and when English language YA fiction comes at us, and I'm saying English language because it's either American or Australian or British or you name it. One of the constants seems to be the fact that these kids, some of them at least, seem to be raising their own parents or seem to be somehow responsible for their parents. I think it's pretty much also the case in every line of you. I think that Lydia has this very not ideal relationship to her mother, but also her mother is not very responsible because reasons. And also Lydia somehow at some point when she's not fighting with her or she's not locking her up in a car or doing stuff like that, she also tries to make her more responsible somehow, and she also tries to be responsible in her stead. And I wanted to ask you, maybe it's a hard question, I don't know, like, do you feel that it's actually a trend now that, you know, teenagers are getting more and more responsibilities and they need to sort of grow up faster so that they can also have this more equal relationship to their parents?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for myself, when you get to a certain age, sort of around 16, there's a lot of pressure on you to like make really important decisions, you know. And I think particularly for girls as well, like there's like a lot of decisions that you have to make in your early 20s and things like that men don't, and I think that has a huge bearing on your relationship with your parents and what kind of upbringing you've had. And do you like how you were brought up? Do you want to make the same decisions that they made, you know, or do you want to make different decisions to them? And it's hard because, you know, those are really important decisions to make at 16. You've got to decide what you're going to do with the rest of your life, and it's like, but you know, that's a huge decision, and you don't necessarily always know, and there's no right answer either. I think there's a lot of pressure to have to make the correct answer. And you know, I think now I know that there is no right answer and you can go and do what you want. You know, I did a degree in art history. I've ended up working in engineering, and now I write books. You know, just chase your interests, basically. But yeah, I would say that there's pressure on your relationship with parents for that, because you know, the way you're brought up probably does dictate the choices that you make. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's pretty much like well expressed in the book as well, because you mentioned like pressure. And for example, this is like also for people who haven't read the book, it might be interesting because Lydia's mother has this sort of obsession with good grades and her having a very good file for the university. and her becoming a doctor, which
Mhm.
might also come a bit from the fact that she's just working in a lab and that's not enough for her. So she has this tendency, very common among parents, to want something more for her daughter, or at least something that she envisions as being more. So she has like her very, very own conceptions of what should be or shouldn't be done. And I
Yeah.
think it's like a very important book to read, not only for people who are tech savvy or who would like some encouragement in this area of artificial intelligence and coding, but also for people who maybe have a rough time talking to their parents, talking to their peers about their decisions, because I felt that this is also an important part of the book. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's like Lydia's mother is trying to live through her a little bit and make sure she does the things that she herself wanted to do and didn't end up doing. And I think that's also similar for Emma in the book as well. Her and her mother have a similar relationship where her mum was like this past like glamour model and she wants her daughter to go and do the same thing. You know, yeah, there's quite a lot of pressure, isn't there, when your parents tell you to go away and do one thing and you don't really want to do it, and how do you tell those people that you don't want to do it, because it's difficult. So yeah, the book definitely explores that kind of thing as well. You're right.
I got another question also on social media, and pun intended. They ask you, what's your take on social media? So how is your relationship with social media?
I different platforms make me feel differently. Like Twitter, I don't like Twitter because I feel like you can express an opinion on there and the whole internet will disagree with you, and I'm just scared of saying anything on that platform, so I just tweet the random thing. Instagram I really like because I can just share pictures and I'm probably a lot better at taking a picture of something, and there's a lot less to argue about in the picture, isn't there? So I'm not as scared of Instagram, but at the same time with Instagram you can present a picture of something and make your world look really perfect, and it's not the case, so that you have to take everything on there with a pinch of salt. TikTok I find quite hilarious. I quite like TikTok, just scrolling videos and people playing pranks on each other. I find that really funny. I don't know why. So my algorithm is just tuned to people playing pranks, and I get a lot of cleaning videos as well. Do you get cleaning videos? I find people cleaning things really satisfying.
No, I just get cats. Well,
you get cats, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I get a lot of cats as well now that you mention it. So yeah, different platforms make me feel differently, but Twitter, I'm definitely scared of Twitter. But yeah, Instagram and TikTok not so much. I can hide on them, okay, but Twitter is scary.
Yeah, because I was thinking that also in the book there is a lot of instances in which Henry, the artificial intelligence in-house in residence, he uses social media to get into people's accounts and find out stuff about them and dig up dirty secrets. So I was just thinking that maybe it should be like a sort of warning, like make sure that you share things you really want to share.
Yes, absolutely. You've got to be careful what you put up, haven't you? Because I think if you look back, if you really tried to find it, I think I've probably got a Facebook account from like 2007 when it first kicked off, and there's all sorts of things that could be on there that you've got to really think carefully about. So yeah, it's got definite potential to be scary, I think, social media.
Definitely. And we have a question from Facebook, speaking of which, and it says, if you could have your own AI, what would you like it to do?
Write my next book. It's really funny because I was chatting with a writing friend, and we've both used Chat GPT to I was just putting in an idea that I had for a book, and it's like, how could I develop this idea, and it just gave me like a list of plot points that I could develop for my next book, and I was like, oh, some of these are actually okay. And then I thought, because AI is rapidly replacing things like AI art, and illustrators, it's so so bad, and it's just a matter of time before an AI writes a book, isn't it, really? And so I was like, okay, ChatGPT, write me the first 500 words of this book, and thankfully they were terrible, so I don't feel threatened just yet, but give it 6 months, I think.
Yeah, they just need time to make perfect and keep updating themselves, just as Henry does with all the updates and everything. That just
I'll get there, unfortunately.
Yeah, read the book, guys. It's very. I'm telling you, really, it's like addictive. Make sure you have a couple of days or nights or whatever you use to read. Yeah. Right. So just to maybe take a step back from the book and from everything, because I was also reading about what you're doing with your, let's say, spare time. And I promised you before starting this that I was going to ask you about it, because you keep telling that you're like building a house in Scotland and you've been living in a caravan. And I really wanted to ask you about that because it sounds very interesting.
It's probably sounds a lot more interesting than it is. We moved to Scotland about 2 years ago, and living in a caravan in Scotland is very, very cold. So I now own lots of jumpers, lots of blankets, and it's very cold. But the house is coming along really well. Basically, my husband, when I first met him, he's always wanted to build a house. Like pretty much on our first date, he told me he was going to build a house one day, and I was like, yeah, okay, you build the house, I will be over here in the caravan, drinking wine. And he decided, he decided he really wanted to do it. So a couple of years ago he quit his job and he's been building the house. So it's going, but it's really slow, obviously, because of COVID. That's kind of made everything slow, and like it was difficult to get anybody to come and help because there was lockdown, and also prices have just gone absolutely bonkers because of COVID. Everything's so much more expensive now, so it's going a lot slower than we would have thought. But they have bricks out there today, so I'm very happy to see bricks. I never thought that's something I'd say, but there you go.
And that's amazing. And I was like, recently when I visited Scotland, I could see that a lot of businesses were actually closed because of the rising energy bills and everything. So I suppose things aren't going that well at the moment.
It's scary at the moment. Yeah.
It's true. I have another question. I think it's really somehow maybe somebody got inspired about my question about the house, but they wrote to me to ask you if you have any pets.
If I have any pets. No, we don't. Me and my husband really wanted to get a dog, but because we're in a caravan, we decided we would wait until we're properly in the house to get a dog, because if the caravan's not very big, we'd probably be falling over each other if we got one. But also our land hasn't got it's not got a fence around it, so the dog could just get out and take itself off for a walk and not come back. So we wanted to look after it if we got one. So yeah, we're waiting until we're in the house, and then we will get a dog, I think, hopefully. I really want a cat, but my husband is allergic, and I grew up, I've always wanted to have a cat, and my parents said, no, you can have one when you move out and you can get your own cat. And then I married somebody who was really allergic, so I will never get to have that cat, so we'll have to have a dog.
Yeah, you think that one of those cats don't have fur, maybe.
I know. I just told him if he got like an injection, like an allergy injection, he'll be fine. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed because I have cats and I couldn't imagine
I know. I really
cats.
want one. They're endless entertainment as well, aren't they?
Exactly. You just don't need any sort of amusement, you just watch them all day long and it's enough.
Yeah.
Right. So another question that I can see popping up is if you have any new projects going on.
Yes, I do. I am writing about clones now. So I talked about Ex Machina before, and I'm taking a lot of heavy inspiration from Ex Machina. So think about it like Ex Machina, but with clones, basically. That's what I'm writing. But I can't say any more than that. I shouldn't have told you that. So it's a secret.
So you keep staying in this area of technology and virtual reality and experimental alternative thingies. Yeah,
like
you
sort
really
of,
like it now, huh?
yeah, like sci-fi, but with a contemporary edge. Yeah.
Did you think at any point in your life to write about something, like, because you studied art history, did you think about writing about something inspired from that, or
I don't know, honestly. Like, the first book I tried to write was fantasy. I really wanted to be a fantasy writer, but I'm just absolutely terrible at fantasy. So but apparently I'm quite good at sci-fi, so I'll stay with what I'm good at. But maybe one day I'll write a fantasy novel. You never know. So maybe one day.
yeah, I can think of a couple of things inspired by art history, which can also be sci-fi. I don't know. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
think about, I don't know, time traveling or teleportation, or I don't know.
You never know. I think if you think about it, you can trace everything back to something, can't you? So
Yeah, pretty much. I know we actually talked a bit about this, and I also read in a couple of interviews with you before about some of your books that you like and about some of the things that you recommend. So I was actually curious if there are any genres that you don't like and you wouldn't read.
Oh, so I don't like paranormal stuff, really. I find it too scary. When it comes to reading or watching a film, if it involves ghosts or demons or Ouija boards, I'm out. You can just count me out, because I just find them too scary. I can't handle them, and they will keep me up at night. So I much prefer psychological horror, you know, things like Shutter Island, things like that. I love that kind of thing, but if it's got a ghost in it, I'm out. I just can't handle it.
So nothing too much in your face and very gory and very raw
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, can't do it. It's not for me.
What about music? What do you like and why? Well, like, do you like to write with music? Do you like to make playlists?
I usually have to have total silence. So I've got friends who can write in cafes, and have like headphones on and just listen to music or write in a cafe, and I don't know how they do it. If I sit in a cafe, I'll be listening to everybody's conversations, or watching them. I can't. I have to write at home, and I have to write in silence. And if I write music, if I try to listen to music, it's probably got to be something that doesn't have lyrics, so like lo-fi or classical music, piano music, you know. But I tend to only do that if I really want to get in the mood of something. So there was a bit for Game Over Girl that I read, that I wrote, and then I wanted to capture like a particular atmosphere, so I ended up listening to some Einaudi music, piano music, to try and get me in the zone. But usually it's total silence, because I just too distracted. I just want to listen to the music rather than write.
Yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense to me. But you said that if you'd be in a coffee shop, you'd probably listen to people chatting around you and maybe, I don't know, grasping a bit of this and a bit of that around. So do you get a lot of inspiration from people around you when you write?
Probably more so than I realized. Yeah. I think particularly when I was first writing, I would really listen to the way that people talked, and like their speech patterns, and then try and make up characters like that person, because then they would seem like they were more real. But I think I don't do that anymore, because I feel a bit like it's rude. I don't know. Is it rude to sort of pinch somebody and put them in a book? I don't know. So I don't do that anymore, but I used to do it a lot.
Don't you have people who ask you to be in your books?
Not yet, because my books aren't very happy. I don't know if anyone would want to be in my book.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because I keep hearing about these people like, can I be in your next book or something like this? Like, can you give me a tiny part in it? Yeah. What's your take on possible film or series adaptations? Like, would you be into that if somebody came and said, oh, I really want to see your book on TV?
So Every Line of You, I Love did sell for TV, which is very exciting. But the way that it works is a production company buys the rights for 18 months and they develop a script. And if they can sell that script to a network within those 18 months, that's when it would go to production. So I got a script, but it didn't sell to a network. So I got really close, but not far enough. So, but you never know, someone else might buy it and try and develop it. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, like guys, keep reading the book, keep putting it on social media, keep saying things about it so that it attracts attention and we can actually see it.
You never know, you could see a real life Henry.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was just thinking that maybe this is one of the first times that I actually hear how it works, but I also know a lot about TV series which started with a certain network and then they got cancelled, but they came back on a different network. They came back. Yeah, exactly, because fans were very much into it, so they kept putting like pressure on it, so somebody else bought it, or so nothing is impossible, really. I mean, I really hope, because I was thinking while reading it that it's quite cinematic, so I could actually see it, like being adapted. And for me, it's like a breath of fresh air to see YA books happening in other places than America. I know it doesn't seem fair, but it's like a lot of them, and to see them in Europe as well.
Yeah.
If it's the UK, so okay, it's still English speaking, but at the same time, it's a totally different culture. And I think that the characters express themselves in different ways. And I think that, high school kids in the UK are not the same as high school kids in the US. So for me, it's like super important to also see a bit of diversity in this respect. So this is why I'm like so much clinging on it and saying, okay, I really want to see something happening with it. I don't know how you feel about this, but this is my take.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I love watching translations of things. There was a really good French series. I can't think what it's called off the top of my head, but it was about dead people that came back to life, but they weren't like zombies or anything, and I can't remember what it was called. Like
that's it. Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
I love that. Yeah, that was such a good show. And then they made an American version and they ruined it, and I was like, it doesn't need to be American, just leave it as French. And so I love watching translations of things. And there was a Spanish one that I watched on Netflix that was like a YA show about a mystery at a school, and I'm terrible with TV show names. I can't remember what that was called either, but that was really good. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, you're right, you just get a different perspective and a different culture, and that's what makes it good, exploring these different cultures. And when you get an American adaptation of it, it's just like, but you've taken the bare bones of something and ruined it. So yeah, keep things in Europe. Yes.
Pretty much. Thank you for sharing this opinion. Right, so guys, whoever is watching us or is with us or just came along later, I will just give you a 3-minute warning so that you can ask whatever you still want to ask of Naomi while she is still here with us, because time flew apparently, because we were having so much fun. At least for me, it was really funny.
It's gone really fast actually.
And we're on limited time here, unfortunately. But as I said, you still have a couple of minutes to ask something if you want to. And in the meanwhile, I'm just gonna keep busy a little longer. And I will ask her because once again, I will show you the book so that you know what to buy. So I think the supporting characters in the book were quite important as well. I mean, we have the relationship between Lydia and Emma. We have the secret agent that turns up at some point and snoops around. I mentioned already the relationship with her mother and also the absence of her father. So this is my question actually. Like, how do you feel about supporting characters and about characters that somehow keep the main character going?
Yeah. One thing I learned when I was writing is that it doesn't matter who it is. If you've got a character in a book, they have to want something too. So your main character, basically over the course of the book, probably wants something, and the whole book is them getting or not getting that thing. So it's the same for secondary characters. So like Emma or Pete, what did they want? And do they get it? And so that was how I went about writing them and just putting them in. But also to keep the book quite fast-paced, every now and again I would just bring a secondary character in to mess with Lydia, and it would kind of rock her off balance a bit, and that was how you keep the plot moving really quickly, by just bringing these secondary characters in, because often what they want clashes with what she wants, right? So if you bring those two people together, it's going to create tension, and you're going to have this really fast-paced book. So that was kind of what I was trying to do throughout it, so you get something that hopefully you read really quickly. Hopefully. So so that's a good writing tip that I learned when I was in class.
It's a pretty rad trick, actually. Yeah. When I come to think about it and analyzing it,
you can see where it happens, can't you?
Exactly. Wow. All right. Okay, so what I suggest now is for everybody to just stare for 20 seconds at this lovely cover, and to go on the publishing house's website or to our lovely Cartu.xyz bookshop's website and order it. I'm not trying to sell it. I'm actually really quite good, really. I mean, I don't get any percents. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's nothing for me, really. It's and basically, just if you didn't have the chance to be here with us live, just watch the recording, because there's going to be a recording on YouTube as well of Naomi and myself speaking here. And I'm pretty sure that it will convince you to buy it, because I don't know, I think we really need this kind of books, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they do question a lot of things around us, and this is the kind of society we live in, and this is the kind of dilemma we might face. So really. That was pretty much my chunk of advertisement for it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's the only thing I can come up with. So yeah, because we have just 2 minutes left, maybe, Naomi, I was thinking that it would be nice for you to end this circle and to leave us with perhaps, I don't know, any thoughts or any messages or anything you have in mind for your readers.
Any thoughts? If you ever try and write a book, my advice would be to write what interests you. If you try and write what you think will sell, or you try and write what you think is popular, it won't do as well, because your heart isn't in it. So what I would advise if you're writing is to write what interests you, because nobody else is interested in the things that you are. And so when you write what's on your heart, you can produce something that's so much more unique and so much more special. So yeah, potential writers, write what's on your heart, not what you think a shelf would want. There you go.
That's quite amazing, actually. Wow.
There you go, mic drop.
No, really, I mean, really, I was just thinking, it just went into my mind that I have this girl who is in one of my creative writing classes, and she had a plot about something like a company and the virus and something that destroys her company's folders, and I was like, what am I reading about? But now actually I'm thinking, but nobody I know wrote about something similar before, like she has a whole plot. So wow,
yeah,
what you're actually saying, it's amazing.
There you go. So yeah, write what interests you, write what's on your heart.
Interests you, what's in your heart. Thank you, Naomi, so much.
Thank you very much. This was really good fun.
Like thank you. Super lovely thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for asking questions.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you to everybody who kept sending them to me on social media. Thank you to the colleagues who kept delivering them to me on the chat room as well. And Naomi, here's fingers crossed for you to get
Yay.
that house built.
Yes, hopefully
And
no
not
longer in a
the
caravan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we really hope to get the next book as well in Romania, and also for you to finish the clone book.
Yes, that'd be
And
very
we get
exciting.
some news about it. Yeah,
Okay.
super excited. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you very
You have a
much.
lovely
Really appreciate
day.
it. You too.